Hi, Hannah Levin here with Heartfelt Wellbeing, and I'm back for another Tuesday talk. And today we're going to be focusing on the wisdom of winter. From an Ayurvedic perspective, how do we live well in this season? I'm recording this on the 19th of December, so 2 days before the winter solstice. And in that vein, I want to just encourage all of us to live into this wisdom of the winter season in whatever ways possible for us right now. Back to the quote that I love to share from Teddy Roosevelt, which is, do what you can where you are with what you have. So as we're doing that in the seasons that we flow through, it really helps us live into greater ease, more joy, less conflict. A lot of that ends up being inner conflict. And the ability to live in rhythm with nature, which is really how we are designed to be happiest and healthiest. So from the Ayurvedic perspective, we have these 5 elements of space, air, fire, water, and earth. And then we have the doshas that are each made up of 2 of those elements. So Vata dosha is made up of space and air. Pitta dosha is made up of fire and water. And Kapha dosha is made up of earth and water. And as we flow through the seasons, so dosha governs lots of things, and we tend to, in our popular culture, think about dosha as what describes us, right? Like I am Vata predominant or Pitta predominant or Kapha predominant. But there's also doshic governance over life stage and seasons. And so when we look at living in rhythm with a specific season, we want to look at its doshic qualities. And so winter is a really interesting season because the first part of winter is governed by Vata dosha, which is dry, light, cold, mobile, subtle, and rough. And the second part of winter is governed by Kapha dosha, which is heavy, dense, cloudy, and sticky, moist, and cool. Okay, so what's interesting is that in Ayurvedic perception of the seasons, there's 3 seasons, and how we understand seasons from our Western minds is that there's 4 seasons. So Vata, Pitta, and Kapha season, the one season where there's 2 doshas involved is winter. And this first part of winter, as we're transitioning into winter officially, is governed by Vata dosha, which also governs the autumn. And so these dry, light, cold, mobile, subtle, and rough qualities have been prevalent in our environments. This is in the, right now, I'm speaking as somebody living in the Northern Hemisphere, but this goes for if you're living in the Southern Hemisphere for the opposite time of the year, right? So in like the June, July, August timeframe, this would be your winter, that the winter is very challenging on our bodies because we are warm-blooded and we live in a time when productivity and focus on achieving things is prized above all else. And so winter can be a really, really challenging time for us because nature is encouraging us to have more rest. We can see that from the balance of daylight and nighttime in our environment. This time of year, we have the longest nights and the shortest days. And specifically, that's on the solstice is the longest night of the year, the shortest day of the year. So we have this kind of pendulum swing that goes from winter solstice to summer solstice and then back again. So the solstices are the pause before we move in the solar year cycle back towards the other extreme. So winter solstice is this pause before we start moving into the next solar year. So we could see it as the transition, the end of one solar year and the beginning of the next solar year. So after the solstice, we start to gain a little bit more daylight over each day. We hit the equinox where the night and day are equal, and then we build more daylight than nighttime after that until we get to the summer solstice. And then we move back again, autumn equinox equal back towards winter solstice. So we're all part of this rhythm back and forth, whether we pay attention to it or not, it's affecting us. And the more that we can live into living in alignment with the flow of these yearly cycles, the more ease we will experience. And like I said before, we live in a day and age where we're expected, if we put it in the context of seasons, to live in perpetual summer. Like that everything is growing and abundant and fruiting and lots of energy all the time. And that's not the case. We are part of nature. When we align with nature consciously, we end up living with more ease and alignment. So the winter really invites us into a place that a lot of us don't have much experience with. It's a place of dreaming, of intuition, of resting more. And resting can look lots of different ways. It doesn't mean, setting up camp on the couch and not going anywhere or doing anything. But it means doing things where we let go of our sense of time so much. Now, a lot of us have jobs and things that keep us in the same structure and flow throughout the year. However, we can also invite in some of this energy that is a little more fluid this time of year, where we let go of being so attached to the clock. We let ourselves recognize that we're tired at 7:30 at night. Anybody been noticing that? Here in Floyd, Virginia, it gets dark around 5 p.m. And by 7:38, I'm like, is it time to go to bed, right? And if we just take our cues from looking at the clock and we say, no, it's not time to go to bed, we still have a couple hours or a few hours to be productive, that's not helping us live into the wisdom of the season. In the winter, we're meant to sleep more. There's more darkness in the environment. Our energy cycles are governed by daylight. We're diurnal creatures, not nocturnal creatures, although some of you might argue otherwise. But your body is set up to be on a clock with nature, with the day and the night, to be awake during the day, asleep during the night, to have more energy and productivity in the summer, and to hibernate a bit in the winter. So this energy that we're invited into during this December time in the Northern Hemisphere is really counterintuitive for a lot of us, the way that we have cultivated what our intuition guides us for, which isn't necessarily in alignment with nature. So I just want to reiterate that the darkness really invites us into these dream states, this space of planting seeds of intention for the coming solar year, of connecting deeply with our intuition, of being a little bit in liminal space and time, and not being so tied to checking the check boxes of what we have to do. Yes, we still have to work and be part of communities and families and make meals and things. I'm not saying throw it all out the window. I'm saying when you have the opportunity to tune into where can rest come in, and rest might be doing creative things. And Vata dosha is particularly supportive for our creativity. So that might be singing or painting or drawing or playing music or dancing. The things that feel like you are in a flow state, and we're cultivating more of that kind of in the darkness. We're less visible. And so we can really be in more of that intuitional realm of what brings us joy And although this time of year really pushes us into the holiday parties and eating more sugar and drinking more alcohol and staying up late, all of these things are not in rhythm with the season. And I'm not saying to not participate, but to do that in balance with your own cultivation of what does it look like to maybe have an evening by candlelight and to listen to music and draw, or to cultivate the space that is before the big outward energy. Like, what's that like deep desire to reconnect with our inner longings of what we might like to see more balance with in the coming solar year. So so it's a time of darkness, our intuition, dreams, planting seeds of what's to come in the new solar year. And when we live in alignment with the energies of the season and balance with the wisdom of opposites, so this season will bring us up and spin us around in the ether if we aren't doing things to keep ourselves grounded, to stay warm, to stay nourished, right? That these pieces, if we're if we're eating lots of vata aggravating foods, if we're not keeping a regular schedule, if we're not sleeping enough, then we get really imbalanced. We get sick, we get anxious, we have poor sleep. And these imbalances send us into a really unhappy state during this time of year. And it doesn't need to be that way. So I'm going to go through some really practical tips of how we can support ourselves during the winter. And I want you to just keep in mind this invitation to kind of exhale into the darkness. When we think about the breath being the mirror of this seasonal flow, we can think of the inhale being the springtime, the pause at the top of the inhale being the summer. That's the height of this energy in the body. And then the exhale is the autumn. And then the pause at the end of the exhale is the winter. So we can think of specifically the winter solstice being that pause. If we're, thinking about the pendulum swing, right? Back and forth between solstices, this pause before we change direction, that's the winter solstice. And can we exhale fully and feel that? Like everything is as it is. We receive that. Nothing needs doing in this moment. Just receive that. And then what can we receive from our own intuition, from feeling deeply into alignment with our heart, into our gut? What wisdom is there? So that's the energy here. And then I'm going to go through some specific things that you can do with lifestyle, with food, with herbs. As I share these, I'm going to be sharing a whole lot. And I want you to upfront decide that you are going to take away one or two of these to apply in your life right now. Not everything, because you're going to get overwhelmed and none of it's going to be successful. But one or two things that really stand out to you that you're like, I'm ready to cultivate this in my life. Okay? So the first section I'm going to talk about is lifestyle. So for lifestyle, we want to think about how we're living more in rhythm with the night and the day, and that it gets dark really early. So we want to eat during daylight hours as much as possible, not eat very long after dark for our evening meal if we are eating after dark, because the solar energy is what supports our digestive energy. And so if we're eating late and it's been dark for several hours already, we're not going to have that support for our digestion and assimilation. So eating, particularly this time of year, a very, very large and nourishing lunch. And that's when the sun is at its height in the sky. This is, during these decreased hours of daylight, we're going to have the most support for our digestion. And then we want to go to bed early. We want to get more sleep this time of year. So noticing, when do you start yawning? When do you start sighing in the evening? When do you feel like, oh, I'm ready to go to bed? Even if you look at the clock and it's 8 p.m. or whatever, you can start that wind down. You might take a hot bath or oil your body or do some gentle yoga and let yourself be in that space, winding down. My friend Laura calls it sweetness hour before going to bed. That really cultivates that relaxation and sinking into deep sleep. So we definitely want to go to sleep before 10 p.m. per the Doshic clock. Many of you have heard me talk a lot about this before. However, during this time of year, you might really find that going to bed even earlier, 8:30, 9, feels really good. Getting lots of nourishing sleep. You might oil your feet with some sesame oil, massage into the soles of your feet, put on some socks and crawl into cozy bed and sleep. Like, really allow yourself to sleep. Get all your electronics out of your bedroom. Let it be cold, dark, quiet in the bedroom. Not too cold. Don't want to freeze. But letting those aspects support your sleep is really, really powerful. And then we want to wake up before the sunrise. Well, if that's been a goal for you, this is a great time of year to start doing that because the sunrise is really late in the Northern Hemisphere. So even waking up at, 6:30, close to 7 can usually be before the sunrise. And then in the summertime, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. near the summer solstice to wake up before the sunrise. But here we can get even more sleep. So if you're sleeping from 9 to 6:30, from 9 to 7, that's 10 hours of sleep. How luxurious is that? This is really when we can build up the ojas, the essential vitality sap, the stores of abundance inside ourselves, so we're not feeling depleted all the time. This is the time of year to rebuild and to store up that inner abundance for the coming solar year. So we're not depleting ourselves. We're not drinking all the alcohol and staying up till 2 a.m. and, getting sick and, right? Like getting worn down. We're really supporting ourselves to be well rested, nourished. And so we can really feel abundant going into the next solar year. So waking before the sun and moving your body in the morning. So this is a time of year when we can feel really stiff and maybe a little more achy when we wake up in the morning. So it's really important to move your body, but not in really aggressive ways. So we're not like pushing ourselves to do like really hardcore active stuff. We're being active, but in ways that really support fluidity and mobility of the joints. So we definitely do joint circles. We do gentle movements to warm up until we're really kind of feeling the fluid move in our bodies. And then we can do more active movements, building some warmth, building some heat in our bodies. That's really great this time of year. So we want to wake up before the sunrise and move. We also want to hydrate. And so this is a time of year when we can tend to get dehydrated very easily because our thirst feels really different than it feels in the summertime. When there's heat in the environment, we're sweating more and we're just like, oh, we want the water to cool down. This time of year, we're in more drying environments, especially if you're in a house with heat, right? It's very drying. So we need to think about hydration from a totally different standpoint. And I really encourage folks to do a morning and afternoon water chug. So this is in between meals. So it might be like 10:30 a.m., 3:30 p.m. You can set an alarm on your phone. drink up to a quart of water, like chug it, not just like sip, oh, I'll have a little bit of water now. This is a time to really just flush some water through your body. This also helps with dips in our energy that we tend to have, especially in the afternoon. Most of us are pretty good about hydrating early in the day, and then we kind of slack off after lunch. Then we hit an energy dip in the afternoon and we're like, oh, I need some sugar or caffeine or a snack, when in fact we're just dehydrated. So getting some hydration going really consciously. I've actually lately been filling up a half-gallon mason jar at the beginning of each day. So I have my quart of hot water with a little apple cider vinegar at the very start of my day. And then I have this whole other half-gallon of water that I seek to consume by the end of the day. So I'm really making sure that I'm getting, what is that? That's 64 plus 32. Like, that's a lot of, right? A lot of ounces of water, right? 96 ounces. So I'm making that concerted effort, and I can tell a huge difference in terms of my energy, my skin, my elimination is so much better when I have that amount of water. So hydration is really, really key. We want to make sure that we keep our head, ears, and neck covered when we go outside. So the cold air is drying, the wind is rough too. So we really want to make sure that we wear a scarf and a hat, maybe put a hood up on a jacket, that we're really protecting these areas that are very susceptible to the cold and to the dry and the rough. And so you might just make it a habit to just wear a scarf constantly this time of year. We can also support our hydration and immunity by doing daily oil massage. And again, if this is new for you, try doing it once a week, right? It doesn't need to jump in and be like daily, right? Once a week or every other day, whatever feels approachable to you. But using oil on your skin, and this time of year, sesame oil generally works well for most people. And you can get lots of different body oils, and Banyan makes some really wonderful ones. You can look those up, and you can go through my affiliate too if you'd like. The oil seeks to hydrate from the outside in, and it provides an extra layer on the skin that feeds the skin microbiome, so your bugs on your skin stay really healthy and happy. Our external skin is just a mirror of our internal skin. So we can really see, like, if our internal skin is dry, our external skin is going to be dry. So we want to hydrate and lubricate. So oiling the body, massaging oil into our skin. You can do this before or after bathing. You can do it just throughout the day. If sometimes oiling the body in between changing out of pajamas into clothes for the day. And just check out, kind of what level of oil feels good. So you're not getting everything all oily, but you're also supporting your hydration, your lubrication, and your immunity. So it's dry mucosal membranes that are susceptible to viruses, pollutants in the environment, and also just dry skin. So as we keep everything lubricated, we're going to be supporting our immunity. This is really key if you're traveling too this time of year. Make sure you've oiled your body, and we want to oil our nostrils. So I'm putting my pinky up my nose to demonstrate, but you can put a drop of sesame oil on your pinkies, rub them together, and then put the pinkies up the nose and then massage that around. Or you can also lay down, lean back, and put a couple drops of Nassia oil up your nose. You can use plain sesame oil if you'd like, or you can purchase specific Nassia oil. And that helps maintain the moisture in the mucosal membranes in the nose, and also coats the nasal hairs to make them more sticky so that they catch more intruders that might come into your body. Same with your ears. You can put some oil on your finger and massage it around into your ear. The more vata you have in your constitution, in your system, either as your base constitution or imbalance, the more this dryness is going to be an issue for you. Okay, so keeping everything lubricated. Often with Ayurveda, it's like oil is the answer, right? Especially for any dry or rough conditions. If your body feels well lubricated, you can dry brush. And you can use raw silk gloves or an actual dry brush. And this is another way of massaging your body, moving lymph, and that helps clear out congestion, keep us healthy and happy as we move into kapha season. So late winter, when it becomes a little more wet in the environment, we can dry brush more often. You'll notice you don't want as much oil on your skin. When that happens will depend on where you live. So I can't give you a specific date, right? But you'll notice there's a shift from the dry and cold to the cool and wet. Okay. We also want to avoid overly stimulating environments. So our sense organs are way more acute this time of year. It's when we're quiet and listening. There's not as much light to see, so we're noticing more, right? Our skin is more sensitive to the cold. So really tuning in to how much you're asking of your sense organs this time of year. Maybe you're not listening to so much, podcasts, TV, news, right? Maybe limiting that a little bit more. Noticing where you can bring in some dark, some stillness, some quiet. And same with in the mouth. Like we can really eat like very simple meals this time of year. Stews, like one pot meals are really, really great. And doing grounding movements, like gentle flow yoga, some weight training you can do after you've warmed up your joints, but not things that are super, super duper, all over the place, aggravating to the vata. So let's talk a little bit about food here too. So we want to have food that is cooked this time of year. We don't want to be having anything that is cold. So we want to balance supporting our digestive systems with warmth, because the environment outside is cold. So we want to eat warm foods. We want to eat warming spices. We want to eat things that are easy to digest. Okay. So warming, soothing, easy to digest soups, stews are really good. Think about warming spices. Ginger, cardamom, cinnamon are all great, as well as things like coriander and cumin, digestive aids. We can also, at this first part of winter, up our intake of good beneficial fats. So those are things like ghee, coconut oil, sesame oil, olive oil. And then towards the end of winter, late winter, we want to decrease those fats. Okay, so the fats add some warming qualities into the body. And then we also just, again, want to avoid cold, raw foods. We really want to support, just like we want to keep the fire going in the wood stove to heat our houses, we want to keep the fire going in our bellies to digest and assimilate our food. It's very normal for us to eat a little bit more in winter and less in summer, to gain a little bit of weight in the winter and to lose it in the summer. So when you're working with your ideal weight and weight normalization, you can kind of predict that you might gain a pound or 2 or 3 in the winter and then lose it in the summer. And it's just an easeful flow, this expectation that we are the same weight year round no matter what is really a little ridiculous, because we need a little more sustenance in the winter, less in the summer. And then finally, I want to share a few herbs that you might find helpful during this winter time. So ashwagandha is the first herb I want to share about. It's what we call a Vata Pratyanaka herb. So it is like one of the main herbs for Vata. It's an adaptogen, which means it can kind of help out wherever it's needed. It's very grounding and calming. So people have used it for things like sleep, anxiety, overwhelm, but it's also very nourishing. It's also been marketed as a male sexual rejuvenative tonic. I mean, it can kind of be lots of different things, but it's very supportive for immunity, for keeping kind of the strength up in the body. Ginger is very helpful. It not only supports the digestive fire, but also supports the microbiome. I'm talking about fresh ginger here, more so than powdered ginger, although powdered ginger can be helpful, especially in late winter. Cardamom can also be helpful. It helps curb sweets cravings. And back to the food stuff, we really want to try to steer away as much as you can from refined sugar this time of year, because it is very Vata aggravating. So it can lead you to feel anxious, overwhelmed, overstimulated, but also crash. Variable, it can kind of make you go woo all over the place. And so grounding through not having that refined sugar, so that's white sugar, brown sugar, corn syrup, really anything that's processed. So steering more towards having things like maple syrup, dates, honey, as long as it's not cooked. Okay, some other herbs. Tulsi is very warming and nourishing, supporting to the nervous system. Tulsi is also called holy basil. Great to have in teas. Very, very nice. Passion flower can be helpful, soothing and calming, and great for sleep. Gotu kola or Brahmi is a mind calming, but not numbing herb. It's clarifying for the mind. So that can be really helpful, and it has a nice synergy with ashwagandha. So Brahmi and ashwagandha together can be really helpful, clear the mind, nourish the nervous system. And then the final herb that I want, well, it's a combination of herbs. It's called Dashmula. Dash means 10, mula means roots. So it's a combination of 10 roots. If we think about what we want to be tuning into, it's that rooting energy. We want to be eating root vegetables. We want to be grounding, right? And so Dashmula is a combination of 10 roots. You can get it as a powder or as the cut dried roots. So you can use it to make teas or to put in food or herbal formulas. And it's very grounding too. So very calming for Vata. So I hope that you learned some good things from this talk. I'm curious to know, if you're watching this live, what your one takeaway is. What is something that you are going to focus on this time of year? In closing, I want to remind folks that this is not a good time of year to do things like fasting or juice cleanses. Okay. If you want to do a digestive reset, especially maybe after the holidays, it's great to do a mono diet with something like khichdi or a soup or a stew. But you want to keep yourself on a regular eating schedule. Okay. So 3 regular meals a day will do well for most of us, having a good 3 to 4 hour period in between meals, and then a fasting window overnight that's extended because we're not eating so late. So that is really, really key for keeping us in rhythm, and we're not overwhelming our bodies with denying food in a time of year when we really need more food, and also not aggravating with raw things like raw juices, which is way Vata elevating. Okay, so have fun with this. Remember, Ayurveda isn't about rules or harsh guidelines. It's invitations. And the more you live into this, and again, trying like what feels really exciting for you to try out. What's a little thing that you could change right now and just see what is your lived experience from trying that. The more you'll experience that this is a path to greater and greater and greater ease. And if we do what supports us 80% of the time, it doesn't need to be all the time, That's its own kind of imbalance. We get to feel really peaceful and easeful, healthy and happy. So I'm here to cheer you on, supportive of your experiments. Keep me posted on what you're trying and let me know what your questions are. Happy winter, happy solstice. May you be well, safe, happy, and at peace. Be well.